Thailand's deposed Prime Minister summoned for talks with the new military leader. Protest sites in Bangkok are cleared out by the army. A curfew is in place. All eyes are on this man and whether he'll be able to restore stability in Thailand.
The Peace Maintaining Committee, which consists of army forces, navy and air forces, as well as the national police, has to take control of power to administrate the country.
With several Western powers condemning the coup, Palced Chanocha is the man in the spotlight. This is Inside Story. Hello, I'm Mike Hanna. Welcome to the program. Thailand's army has kicked out the elected government and seized power. Ousted Prime Minister Yingluck was summoned for talks with the new military leader, and she's also among the some 150 people banned from leaving the country. The camps of both pro and anti-government groups have been dismantled, protesters ordered to return home, and a curfew is in place. Let's get the latest from Scott Heidler in Bangkok.
Once the stage for the anti-government movement in Bangkok taken down and removed the morning after the military coup. The protesters left Thursday night. Most felt that their effort of more than 6 months paid off because of their goal of removing the current government had been reached. Ratchanuk, who goes by one name, went to work as normal on Friday. She's relieved the army is in control.
Personally, I support coup d'etat. If the army didn't do it, the country would turn into a real mess. No one is ready to compromise in order to make the situation better.
This is the Army Assembly Hall, where more than 100 people from both sides of the political divide have been summoned by the military rulers to discuss the situation. And it's one of few spots in Bangkok where it actually looks like a coup has taken place. One of those summoned to the talks, former Prime Minister Yingluck. Long Yim supports the government and feels betrayed by the army. She was outside the compound where the talks were being held, showing her support for Yingluck.
Because she is the only woman who was elected by the people. We want her to be the Prime Minister again, and we want to support her to fight for the people.
The streets of Bangkok appear to be normal. But with detentions, travel bans, control over the media, and the constitution suspended, there is no question that the army is in control. Yet military leaders have given no answers as to when the country will once again be ruled by civilians or returned to being a democracy. Scott Heidler for Inside Story, Bangkok.
Well, joining us to discuss these developments from Bangkok,ญประคอง. He's an advisor to the Prime Minister's office and a former national security advisor. From London, Tim Forsyth, a professor at the London School of Economics and Political Science. And also from Bangkok, Benjamin Zawaki, an independent Southeast Asia analyst. Welcome to you all. Let's begin withญประคอง. There's been a day to think about it. What do you believe provoked the army's sudden action?
I believe the Army claims that the attack upon PDRC site at Democracy Monuments more or less provide a point for them to start martial law and eventually the coup. But I believe that after initial euphoria by PDRC supporter, the General Prayut, who unlike General Sonthi, the last general of the coup back in 2006, they would face a different condition that they have never faced before. First of all, there is a domestic opposition brewing, 4 places, 2 in Bangkok and 2 in the rural areas, and plus international resistance. France has condemned pretty fast. All European nations has more or less want to see election as fast as possible. United States, more or less, is by law they have to do something. And I wonder if those who more or less are happy with this coup General Prayut, whether he did it himself or whoever behind him, doesn't understand that he faced a lot of problems after this. Reality set in. Now he's the prime minister, caretaking. He has to get a royal decree, and of course, with a lot of unsettling situation at hand, restriction of media freedom, detainment of 150 leaders on both sides, plus 2 former prime minister. General Prayut has to answer the world how he planned to proceed with his action the past several days.
Well, we'll get on to that particular point in a little bit, but Benjamin Zawaki, the original question, what do you think provoked the army's sudden action, having declared martial law, but then deposing, dismissing an elected government? Why did that happen so suddenly, do you believe?
I think General Prayut didn't feel that there was any sign soon that a functioning democracy would be at issue here in Thailand. In contrast to coup announcements in Thailand going as far back as 1947, in the coup announcement the other night, Prayut didn't mention the words democracy, much less human rights. And also, when you look at the name of the coup group, the PMOC, there's no mention there of democracy either. And this is in contrast to coup groups in Thailand going back, as I say, for many decades. And it's also in contrast to a proliferation of opposition groups that have come up in the country, the PAD, the PDRC, the UDD. All of those groups mention democracy or democratic. This coup group is not talking at all about restoring democracy or promoting and protecting human rights. I think that first and foremost, it's looking to restore, as it terms it, peace and order.
Well, Tim Forsyth, we're referring to that previous coup in 2006. Some observers have said that was almost an apologetic coup. No sense of that whatsoever this time.
No, indeed. Certainly in 2006 you had the image of soldiers carrying flowers to try and demonstrate their goodwill. This time it's a much more aggressive, militaristic act. I think the key objective at the moment seems to be that unless the army acted now, then the prospects of some kind of violence on the streets was quite likely. Of course, Thailand is not well known for street fighting, but certainly there was a brewing discontent because the yellow shirt camp was there in strength and the red shirts were growing as well, and I think the army was worried that might lead towards clashes.
Well, Sean Boon Prakong, your view of that, the army claim that it's acting to promote stability and peace, and yet there is going to be a kickback reaction to this, particularly by those who support the current government, is there not?
I don't believe for a minute that the army claims of justification of the democracy monument attack. But I look at it more or less as been premeditated, has been somewhat of a conspiracy between the PDRC, the independent organization, the elite that start this current constitution, who would like to, who are impatient with long-term democratic process and use this corruption issue as a pretext. And I think that is the international community should not be fooled by General Prayut rhetoric. And I believe that if General Prayut side with the government and say to Mr. Suthep, says go home and let's just play by the rules, and of course come up with a better policy in terms of whatever could appeal to the electorate, that could have been done. But this crisis is more or less on a pretext of more or less a blanket amnesty that doesn't exist for 6 months. So I really don't believe that it was just spontaneous, but more or less a premeditated conspiracy. But now they did it, they're going to have to face their own consequences. And I bet if they could take back, they might have to reconsider it.
Well, just to mention the PDRC you referred to, the opposition democratic movement, the yellow shirts as they are popularly called. Benjamin Zawaki, it would appear that the army action has played into the hands of those who were opposed to the government. They have been calling for a deposition of this particular government. Is there any possibility of the conspiracies to which Sean Boon Prakong is referring?
Well, it's difficult to say. Certainly Sutep has been among the leader of the PDRC, has been among the leaders who has been detained, in addition to some 150 other leaders. Interesting is that despite the fact that there was talk before the declaration of martial law of a possible election in July, and then reports of talks of an August election between the declaration of martial law and the coup itself, another omission on the part of the coup group is any talk of an election in the near future. And most of us, the PDRC accepted, I suppose, would say that an election is a critical part of the restoration of democracy. And yet there's no talk of that whatsoever. And so what remains to be seen is just how indefinite this martial law in this coup d'etat is going to last and what the end game is going to be.
Yes, Tim Forsyth, is there an end game, do you believe? Is there any sign that the army has an end game in mind?
At the moment, no, they don't have a stated end game, but I think it is only a matter of time before they do announce a plan towards having general elections. I think the world leaders will put pressure on Thailand unless they come forward with a plan for general elections. However, the big debate in Thailand over the last couple of months is whether to have elections quickly or whether to have reforms before elections. And the big question is, what kind of reforms? From a yellow shirt point of view, the reforms that are required are to make sure that no representative of the Thaksin Shinawatra family can stand for election again. Of course, from the government point of view, the red shirt point of view, that is going to be a rather difficult thing to agree to.
Well, Sean Boonprakong, the government, to reiterate, the army, has suspended the constitution that is in place at the moment. The possibility we are discussing at the moment of elections at some stage, but it's highly unlikely that this current constitution would be introduced in its current form, do you believe?
I believe it would be restrictive to make sure that those who vote for the Pheu Thai party have less of a power. But you have to understand that from the last coup, which was voted on a referendum, it was their side. It was PDRC/Democrat and these elite coup makers that wrote this, and then now they want to change it. And they set up the rules, but what happened was that they haven't had a creative policy by the Democratic Party to engage the voters from the north and the northeast who vote for the Pheu Thai party. I believe that this lip service of trying to write the constitution, that would be more favorable even, plus, but we don't know is how long this would be. It could be longer, but I believe it's a quick resistance that without the royally decree position that General Prayut is doing the caretaking government himself, he's facing the same problem that running the country is not as easy as having a coup.
Yeah, well, Tim Forsyth, speaking of the opposition, the Democrats, they have not won a national election process since 1992. They boycotted the most recent electoral vote in February this year. If there's an election, are there any guarantees that they will again take part?
I would have thought that the Democrats will take part if they are satisfied that the reforms they are asking for have been delivered on. And those reforms are largely to do with trying to exclude the influence of Thaksin on the domestic politics of Thailand at a time when Thaksin is under a charge of corruption. And I think the delicate diplomatic task that the army will be required to do will be to try and deliver those kinds of reassurances or deals which will then allow a general election to take place. However, I should also say that I think patience is running out for the Democrats. I mean, they played the strategy this time of boycotting the elections. If they were to do it again, I think people might begin to get a little bit fed up with that and start to ignore them.
Well, Benjamin Zawaki, there does appear to be a really strongly personal element in this involving the Shinawats, particularly Thaksin Shinawatra. Is there any possibility of a Pheu Thai party existing without the family who appear to be the focal point of the anger of those opposed to the current government?
I would expect that will be one of the conditions of the reforms that Tim mentions. In many ways, Apisit, Sutep, leaders, respectively, of the Democrat Party, of the PDRC, are in many ways the opposite side of the same coin that the military is a part of. But But I do expect if the reforms go forward before an election, the reforms will result in certain changes such that even if the Democrat Party loses the next election, which I think most people expect will be the case, it will still find a way, either it itself, the Democrat Party, or the persons and groups aligned with it, will find a way to still hold a preponderance of power in the country. And that's what they mean by reforms, is changing the rules in such a way as to have the power, even if they're not technically in office.
Tim Forsyth, what role is the monarchy playing in this? This is in the background in Thailand all the time. An aging king, 86 years old, been as king for more than 60 years. Is there perhaps an impetus to the army action relating to the royalty?
Well, so far it's difficult to say based upon the statements made by either the monarchy or by the army so far. So it's very difficult to speculate without the king making a statement or anything like that. But certainly there is a great deal of uncertainty in Thailand about the advanced age and the poor health of the king, and whether this will create a situation of political instability. I read one report this morning that suggested that the army might hold power until the next monarch takes over. Personally, I'd be surprised at that happening. But certainly, I think the situation where the king might be nearing the end of his life creates a situation that will worry a great deal of establishments, such as the military, and therefore that might actually make them be more willing to take control rather than let other people take control.
Benjamin Zaki, your view on that particular issue?